You know about that moonwalk, boy? Yeah. Alright, so this is episode 2. We are going to bring the axle into the garage. We're going to get everything taken apart and we will bring you guys along the way. The plan of action is to get all this stuff off and inspect what we have going on, make sure everything's good. So what you're going to want to do, give it a little spray with some PB Blaster, only the best. Give everything a nice little spray, nothing too crazy. Next, we're going to get these 1/2-inch 12-point bolts out. These hold the hub assembly to the knuckle. Most of the time they are a pain to get out, but lucky for me, these aren't so bad. I could almost do it by hand actually. That's one. Second one coming out, no problem. All right, so get the cotter pin out. Usually they fight, but like I said, this looks like it's been replaced very recently. Honestly, look at that. I don't know if you guys can see. This is brand new. Usually they're gonna want to fight with you. So if you want to get these out fairly easy, you can put a bolt back in. And take the socket off so you don't damage the threads or the head of the bolt. Just tap it a little bit. You'll see it start to separate. Normally, if I wasn't going to reuse these, I would just blast it off with an air hammer. But on this side, because we don't have a ball joint press, so we might have to borrow one. All the parts are laid out that we took off. Hub assembly, the bolts, all the hardware. We're gonna get this thing flipped around, put you guys in a time lapse, and then we will come back and take the center section apart and see what it looks like. Okay, so we got the axle up on the bench. We cleared everything off. All the parts are laid out, nicely laid out on the bench. And we are going to get the center section out of this differential, inspect the bearings, the axle seals, pull the pinion out, replace all the parts that are no good if we see any, which so far everything looks good. I mean, even these ball joints, I never had to replace them, but I'm gonna do it anyway because we're getting some better ball joints, just little upgrades to make this thing a little bit better for this stage of the build. So we'll get into tearing this thing down. So you want to definitely keep these caps going to the right side. Make sure they go back where they came. They do have markings on them. Sometimes, I think all the time, I'm not 100% sure. I don't do this too much, but they should have some kind of marking on it. I don't know. Just keep it on the side that it's going to come out of, where you took it out of. Make sure it goes back there. Let's see. This is the bottom piece. This is top that side. Give it a little wipe. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Best as we can for now. I don't like this rag, it's leaving stuff in there, but so now we're gonna flip this axle over and get this pinion out. What you can do is you can hold it with a wrench. Not really a preferred way, but this is what we got. And that's it. She's off. So we hit the pinion off, and now you're going to want to pop this yoke out. Pinion, actually. Get this pinion seal out. Not really a preferred method once again, but you're going to take a big pry bar and you're going to pop it out. When you get the pinion out, you're going to have some shims. There's going to be a bunch of little shims that you want to keep these and don't damage them. You can spray them with a little brake clean. That one's empty, go figure. Always. Just get them a little cleaned up so you can see what you're working with. They don't really have to go back in the same order, but they all have to be there. So sometimes it makes a difference what order they go in, but for this I would go with, it doesn't really matter. So now you're going to clean the pinion up a bit. Let me get this sprayer on here if I can. So if you check out this bearing, this is a roller bearing, tapered roller bearing, and it sits inside of a bearing race that's inside of the axle housing. It gets pressed in. So if this bearing is bad, which it is not, it doesn't have any significant wear marks, any signs of damage, it looks to be pretty good. So when this bearing looks okay, the race is okay. But whenever you need to replace a tapered roller bearing, you always have to replace the bearing itself and the race also. You can't. So once again, this is the inner pinion bearing. It seems to look okay. There is not any significant signs of wear. It looks to be okay, so we're going to go ahead and reuse that also. Inside here you have an open differential. These are going to be spider gears. You'll only get power to one wheel with these. These are not too great for off-roading, but you know, this is the first stage of this axle. So we got the bearings and the races out, cleaned off, and it's kind of hard to tell, but there is some pitting and signs of wear on the bearing. Also in the race, you can see right there. There's heavy pitting and discoloration in the race. Same thing in here, and that's just from some dirt and debris. Lack of maintenance on the differential fluid, but that's all right. We're gonna send these on their way, and they'll be all right for now. If you look on these U-joints, they have these C-clips holding in the U-joint caps on all 4 U-joints. We are going to go ahead and get this axle shaft into the vise, get the C-clips out, and bang this U-joint out. You're going to want to get your punch or your chisel right up on the edge of the C-clip and just tap it. It should eventually pop out. Sometimes they're a bit stubborn, but there it goes. Slowly getting there. Tapped out. Now you're going to want to get the other side. This side is a little more tricky. It's hard to see, but there it goes. Popping right out, no problem. Basically what you want to do is you want to float the U-joint in a vise. That way you can put downward force on the axle shaft to push the cap out from the axle shaft. So what you're going to do is you're going to line it up in the vise as best as you can. You're just going to make sure it doesn't spin through, but okay, just continue. That's it. So get the U-joint out, you're just going to push the cross up in to the ear of the axle shaft, and you just got to work it out. Sometimes it comes out easy, sometimes it doesn't, but there you go. U-joint's out. I don't know if you can see how dry and non-lubricated this was, but this is why we are replacing them. So I'm not going to go any farther into this axle right now. There's no reason to, because later on we will be doing even more upgrades to this axle, because right now this axle, this is a very budget built, just a slight upgrade from a low pinion 30. So what we're going to be replacing is upper and lower ball joints with a set of Spicer ball joints. Everybody that runs them says they're great, so I'm going to use them too. We're going to get a new pinion seal. We have a new diff cover coming. Also, we have new U-joints and a couple other things for it. So for right now, the axle's torn down as far as we can get it. And that's really that. That's all we can do for right now. So we'll see. Okay, so that's gonna do it for this second video. We got everything on the axle torn apart. Everything is inspected for reuse, for what we are going to be reusing. We took apart the U-joints, saw how they looked. They were dry, they were worn out. So we're going to be replacing them. So stay tuned for the next video, because we have a whole bunch of parts coming for this axle and we're going to get it back together and it's going to be sweet.